because they know it sucks up too much bandwidth. And then they added features like we have what we look like. I don't know how great this is, but as off to the left, what you look like if you're on a mobile phone. Honestly, I don't care. Okay,
Well,
so
oddly
um,
enough, you say
yeah,
that our hosting site for our website made me upgrade
right.
our bandwidth on our Pod TV site because they said
So it
we're
does.
getting.
Yeah.
They made it. They made
Well,
me increase.
on the Pod TV website, podtv.tv, for people who don't know about this, we're running 4 channels, and 3 of them look really good. Okay, there's only one that we're losing out on, and that is sports. We just don't have
That's
any
because I
sports
haven't
channels.
really
We
been
don't
when I
have,
haven't been
and
putting
that's
any.
okay. We're probably gonna change that channel unless we can get some sports, but we can only manage so much. And the fact that we have 4 live channels running 24/7 globally and broadcasting
Oh yeah,
seamlessly, basically seamlessly.
oh
I
yeah.
I I think
I
that
was
as a
watching.
small network,
Yeah,
we're amazing. We're amazing. I mean,
yeah.
I'm the lead engineer on some of this stuff. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I've been out of the loop for 7 months because of a medical problem. I couldn't really step in and do anything. And look, you guys pretty much operated without me. Oh, that's not a good
Yeah.
thing.
No, no, the shows seem to be pretty smooth, and they're working
Yeah.
on. When I go there, there's 4 networks. There's Pod TV Live, which is like the prime shows,
Right.
and then there's the political shows. It looks like we have plenty of those
Yeah.
after today. And then there's the sports and entertainment. But then Brandon is on all the time, and he has some really good travel stuff.
Well,
I
it's
was seeing some today that I didn't even know he did. He did Mexico City, and I thought I don't remember even seeing that. I thought I saw all the shows. I guess not.
Brandon
So
still
travel
goes
shows
in and
good. I'd like to
updates.
add more,
Right. Brandon
but I'd
still
like to
goes
get
in and
Brandon
updates
to do
his
more
content.
travel shows.
Yeah.
You know, so
He
that's it.
will go
But
in and
since Reva's
clean.
joined, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you have to consistently, but
Mhm.
we need more. I know that there's more good travel shows out there. We just need
Right.
them programmed into our system. Once, we have one programmer right now. So, and they manage 4
Yeah.
channels, and Mark, who does all of the shows and also manages a channel. So, I mean, we need,
Hmm.
but I will say this, we broadcast 4 channels 24/7. All content is uniquely ours, majority of it.
Yeah.
And no other TV network operates like this and operates good, right? Smooth, most of the time smooth. So
Hmm.
what we're struggling with right now is the use of our main tool for live shows, which is StreamYard. We know that
Yeah.
other tools exist, but everything we have that we use to make our job easier is programmed on StreamYard.
Right.
So, I mean, this could be a good startup talk up. Is so should we
Right.
talk to StreamYard and say, hey, how can we fix this problem because we're experiencing a lot of
Yeah.
problems? Or do we, pack up and move somewhere else? I mean,
Well,
because that's an
probably
overhaul.
Well, see, the problem of moving somewhere where else when you have like 70 shows and 42 that I know go live every week,
right.
you're moving. It used to be, hey, you move a couple shows, no big deal, but we're
Right.
moving a mountain of shows, so that's the real problem that we have. But Dr. Sharif has joined us. He does the World Teller
Hey,
Economic
Dr.
Forum,
Sharif.
and out of Bangladesh, he comes in really well. But my question to Dr. Sharif, because remember this is the media show, is: have you had problems with the StreamYard? And when you start getting more guests on, in other words, we had a lot of people on the
Yeah.
David Walker show, and my StreamYard just started acting up. It started spinning. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I certainly saw it. I don't know if you guys had problems, but have you had problems when you add more people?
I think that adding more people is difficult through this StreamYard, but this is good. Like when you go for focus discussions, you have limited number of people. Let's say we are 4 people or 6 people. We are discussing. That is good. If you bring
That's very good.
too much of people, that will be a problem for the show. And so that's why I'm very much comfortable with the StreamYard. Actually, I started using
See,
StreamYard
see,
TV through Pod TV. So that is very good. Second thing, some point I faced trouble with this Facebook and Facebook Live and all of the things. It's look like Facebook creating a lot of problem for live shows. Third important thing, even today, I introduced Spot TV to Bangladesh largest private TV channel. It's called Channel I. I think Spot TV need more collaborative partner, let's say from India, from Bangladesh,
Absolutely.
from Malaysia. I'm introducing Spot TV different TV channels to the government agency, different corporation. You need some collaborative partner, like some variety, more audience, variety of audience, and other things. And final comment, like misinformation and disinformation is major challenges, even in South Asia, even in the complex of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and all of the places. I think Spot TV can train more journalists for this misinformation and disinformation. So I want to see Spot TV as an institution for journalists, and it's very possible. Yeah.
I think that as an institution for journalists who are seeking truth in journalism, where we're not told what to say and how to say it by our sponsors, we're not bought and paid for our content, but we solely rely on real people, real stories from around the world, sharing their experiences, sharing what's happening. There's so much more truth in something like that than what you see in major networks who have to spend billions of dollars a year for, their brick and mortar to operate out of. And they have to have a lot of sponsors, or a lot of politicians pay their way. Speaking of that, let's talk about the Netflix. Trump just bought $54 million worth of bonds in Netflix. And you got to ask why. Of course, he wants to control the networks. But Netflix, Tom Hanks and the CEO of Netflix just announced their new documentary that's coming out, I think, in February, about Virginia Giuffre.
Yeah.
And that came out fast. It's called The Black Files. I mean, I would call it the Epstein Files, but it's called The Black Files. There's several documentaries coming out. But I mean, look at that. I think he put $54 million into that. And why did he do that? Is that so that he can, sit on the board and say, I want to remove that? Kind of like what he did with, other things, So I would be careful of the news networks, of what they're telling you, because they are paid for sponsors, and you just need to be careful of that. So, Nick, you have a good show with a doctor, and it's not paid for by pharma, is it? Nick?
No, it's not paid for by pharma. No,
see?
The good thing about Dr. Patmos is he's been around for 50 years practicing medicine. He's a real medical doctor, as opposed to what we have in Washington, D.C., which,
right.
like
we got some major news.
Nick
and Kim, since y'all are both here, we got some major news from Naked at Night, because they're painting an actual portrait. We'll find out if the portrait is actually sold, or how we sell it. Maybe we'll sell it on our store. But one of the major musicians, and Rick can share more about it, but JT is featured in a movie, so he'll be in a movie on tomorrow. The grand opening, wow. I think the opening would be tomorrow, and he announced
the premiere is at the Chinese theater. Yeah.
Oh, nice. What's the name of the movie?
Like Klika. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, because it stars Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts'
brother
is in the film as well. But yeah.
Really? Yeah, well, it looks like Lance is a pretty good artist. I don't know if you've seen his work.
Lance has been
Lance is
craft.
Yeah.
I find his beliefs ridiculous and obnoxious, but his painting is beyond compare.
Yeah, I would agree.
His beliefs entertaining.
No, I don't.
His politics are weird, but his
about
paintings
us
are all
getting
good.
pissed off at each other.
I
But,
know. I
yeah,
get anxiety watching it.
yeah,
It's
well,
like,
yeah, no, I get anxiety doing it every week. I'm like, do I have to? And it's like,
Yeah.
the
Tell
thing-
him if he keeps having these bad opinions, you're going to throw the paint on his face.
well, no, I have thrown furniture, but I
oh
can't.
my
I can't throw stuff because I might wreck a $10,000 painting. I don't want to do that.
no,
No, don't damage his painting.
don't
his
damage
paintings
the
that's-
artwork.
No. If you damage him, it's okay, but please don't damage his paintings.
No,
Don't
it's
damage the art.
He's
I mean,
really unbelievable.
he's a
Lance,
good-
we love you. We're just picking.
He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
your
His
paintings are
brain
really
has been
good.
broken by
Beautiful.
propaganda. Actually, 9/11 broke Lance, where before 9/11, Lance was just like a regular guy, probably a little conservative, but then he saw the government unpreparedness and incompetence in addressing 9/11, and it drove him right into the arms of right-wing conspiracy heads.
What was the
Well, good for him.
exposure just political too, as well? So it would drive people crazy, or was the exposure true data? I mean, and then
Well, okay, the way what happens with Lance is he's an artist, so he needs his eyes. He doesn't need his ears. So he's painting and sculpting all day, but while he's doing that, he has podcasts playing, and they're all from conservatives, Ben Shapiro and what's his Dennis Prager and Hannity and all those people. They all have a fairly consistent message, and his head just gets filled with that stuff.
But you've balanced it out somewhat because you've also got a woman who is I think a self-avowed anarchist, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, our model thinks both political parties are bullshit. She's pretty skeptical about all of American politics, which is a fun addition to our ridiculous show. Anyway, the movie that JD is in is called Clika, Clika. It comes out. It has its premiere tonight, I believe, or tomorrow night, and then its premiere across the U.S. is on January 23rd.
okay,
And
okay.
I believe it's about a Latino rapper.
Yeah, that's what he said it was about, was a Latino rapper. So, yeah. So, and he's a Latin American himself and everything. But Cassidy comes from, she's lived in various places. Because what if she in the, I know she's in Washington. I think she was in the South at one point.
Yeah, she came from Washington State, like the redneck, Washington, Oregon, on the Pacific coast, they're liberal. But as you go inland, they get the whole area gets poorer and more redneck. And she comes from, I think, the redneck area of Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's actually added a different dimension. Like Rick said, they have a second model that comes in sometimes as well. But right now, it is a full portrait of her. I wish Nick was still here because I know that Nick lost his beloved dog recently, but Rick also lost his dog recently, and all in that space because the dog had to be laid to
Sorry,
sleep.
Nick.
Okay, so I'm pissed about dogs. This dog we had to put to sleep. She was 15. We've bred dogs to be as small as this, as big as 200 pounds. We bred all sorts of skills into them, like rat catching, sheep herding. If we had put in a little effort, we could have bred dogs that would regularly live 25, 30 years. It's a little more complicated because you have to breed a bunch of dogs and then have their let their puppies grow up, and you see which of the parents get to be like 17, 18 years old, and then out of the younger dogs you've already bred, you breed the offspring of the longer lived dogs.
Right.
It's complicated. It would be resource intensive, but it would be doable. And especially with like science now, we could do all sorts of genetic analysis.
Mhm.
And we need dogs and cats that live for 30 years, so we don't have to keep every 10, 12, 15 years putting our loved ones in the ground.
Yeah,
We
we're
know
facing it.
with dogs, it's interesting because generally their lifespan is around 14 years, and so if they live 14 years, that tells me that they had a good dog owner. Anything over 14 years, you've put a lot of effort into taking care of them. But I think there is some DNA thought into it. I mean, I look at the fact, we worked with horses for a long time, and they have a fairly long lifespan. You can get, horses can live as long as 40 years if they have a good farm. A lot of them are put out to retire at a certain age, and then they're just well taken care of. So, I mean, it says a lot if your dog lives a long time, because that means that you put a lot of thought into their health care and how they ate and their exercise. I mean,
But
but I'm
Kim,
sorry for your loss, because to me, one of my biggest heartaches was losing my dog.
but
It was
Kim,
hard.
along that same line, it's also very much a issue that they can be like humans. We even those that live a long time, they can succumb to serious illnesses that are going to cause them to not live their full life the way that their life expectancy is. My dad was fortunate enough to have a tortoise, and that tortoises can live to be many years and all along those lines, because tortoises, I think, can live as long as humans can, up to like 60, 70, 80 years old.
There's a 500-year-old tortoise
Right.
from the Galapagos. Those
Right.
guys can live for frickin', I don't know, 500, but 300. Yeah, they can live for hundreds of years.
They can live for lots of times, but Buttercup, and yes, that was his name and everything like that.
Aw.
Buttercup lived outside in Dad's house, which he still lives in a doghouse and everything, but he succumbed eventually to a disease that impacted his life, and is why he is no longer here. But yeah, Buttercup could have still been here, and I remember going by the house and seeing Buttercup. Buttercup was a very lovable tortoise, and yes, tortoises can be lovable as well and everything like that. But he was a fun turtle. Dad also, you'll get a kick out of this. Dad is been into turtles for a number of years, and one time he ran into a turtle that had been injured and everything. And this turtle didn't live that long, but the people still remember what he did. He put training wheels on the turtle so that the turtle could get around, because it was a small turtle and everything like that. So he put like some small race car like type of wheels on it, so the turtle could actually give around and enjoy at least some of his life being mobile and everything like that.
Well, I was watching an interesting story last night about, maybe it was 2 nights ago, about alligators, right? And people don't, and I don't think you can train an alligator to do anything, but all it does is move and eat and kill. But this man, I don't think he would get it behind the fence with them. But when he brings the chicken to feed them, they put their head up. One of them is very, very old and has lost all his teeth. And, of course you can pet him, right. But he claims that he has, trained alligators to do, certain things, but I still didn't see him go behind the fence. But I'm just saying, I think if we show compassion to animals, they sense it. Whether they can't control themselves to hurt people, they still sense that compassion.
Animals respond to affection, and
exactly.
There's this lunatic lady who has made it a hobby of tending to sharks. Sharks get tangled in fishing nets, and they need, some of their teeth get caught on stuff, and she goes down and she, like, in her scuba suit, and she fixes up sharks, and she knows how to behave around them so they don't chomp her. You got to make it clear to sharks that you're not something that they wanted, that you're not a seal. And there's even an insane show, I don't know, out of some country called Dancing with Sharks.
Yeah.
And they go underwater and they do dance routine. Now the sharks don't know that they're dancing, but they dance around the frickin' sharks, and I guess eventually the sharks get the idea, well, these people will give me treats if I don't eat them. And freaking yeah.
Animals respond that way, and they're definitely along those lines. But like you said, you got to respect them and all in that space. And sometimes they can be respected. They can be trained to do things. But if you sometimes act wrong, or maybe you just flinch the wrong way, that's when you can get attacked. I think that's what happened, if I remember correctly. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Siegfried and Roy.
Siegfried and Roy. They made a sharp action and everything like that, and that's when they were attacked, even though they had been working with those animals for a number of years and everything like that. So that is a
they're just
issue.
they're still they lack a lot of the human brain capacity. They do respond to affection, compassion, but I working with horses, you would have horses that would just go wild when some people came around them, kicking down their doors and stuff like that. And it was just because as people, they would go in and their heart's racing to begin with, right? And so I learned, but my son, they would think, oh, he's a horse whisperer, because even the craziest horse in the field would walk up to him. But he learned to control all of this and control himself, and he would be very calm. And so they would walk up to him. So, I think it's all in, the person, because they're animals. They're humans can be just as dangerous. Like the guy said with the alligators, I find humans more dangerous than alligators.
They can be more dangerous. That makes sense.
Humans are more dangerous, but
you can train alligators to a certain extent. There's a place called Gatorland in Florida, which is supposed to, like, people who've been there say it's kind of more entertaining and certainly cheaper than going to Disneyland.
Yeah,
and they might be more entertaining than the seals and dolphins at Disneyland.
Gatorland, they've trained the gators to jump out of the water to go after these chicken carcasses and stuff. And I don't know if are the gators so acclimated to humans that gators have a move that they drown you, they grab you, and then they wrap you up, and then they do that spin so you're underwater, you can't breathe, and then you're dead. Have these gators learned not to regard humans as prey, but as the people who give them, you go to Gatorland, and for $3 you get a pack of hot dogs, and you throw the hot dogs at the gators, and so I don't know.
We do that quite often.
I think they would still naturally grab if a human fell into the water. And they've even said this. In fact, one man who was talking to the interviewer had half a hand gone, and he had gotten caught by one of the alligators, I guess. Even though he was still feeding them, he almost died, but the alligator kept half his hand and he got away. But he said he went into the spin out, and it would have killed him, because the first thing a gator does is, it's just nature, is they grab you and haul you down to the bottom to cause you to lose the ability to fight. You'll pass out, and then they spin you until you die. So, and it's not just humans. They do any creature that they see, a duck, they do anything this way. It's just their
it's their natural way of doing things.
I'm a lunatic, and here's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm writing a novel that includes this technology. Elon Musk has Neuralink to put chips in people's heads. And right now, the use of that is if you're paralyzed, Neuralink, if it's a successful implant in your head, you can think it's stuff and operate devices even by thinking stuff. So right. I want Neuralink for animals that makes the world a little bit more comprehensible. And animals a little less. If you put a chip in an animal, and that that tells the alligator, hey, don't freaking spin humans to death, and maybe and let's.
Well, how do you do that? It would be training. So say you had an alligator in a tank or in a creek because they generally don't go too far, and you put a chip in them, and every time they dragged something down and started spinning, it zapped them, right? And so when it zapped them, they let go. So say, how many times would you have to do this before that gator stock. Now that would be an interesting research paper. You know, how many times do you have to alter that gator to let go? You know, so say you did inject, you know, insert a device, and every time that gator went down, like you're not monitoring it, but every time it drug something down and spun, it would zap them, and then it would go, nah, you know.
Yeah,
and it
on
would
the other hand, like who cares about gators? Gators are going to be gators.
Rick,
It's like a household
it would be interesting if you could train them, though.
Kim
It
is
would
talking.
be.
Hold on a second. What Kim is talking about, isn't that the whole? No, but isn't that the whole nature of what the Pavlov experiment was about? Even though that was humans, I thought that was the whole nature of Pavlov, was that you were training humans in their action.
Yeah,
well, that was training humans. Can you train an alligator?
No. Pavlov's
That's what I'm
dogs.
curious about.
It's operant conditioning. It was Pavlov, and then it was Skinner in the 1930s. But
Right.
Yeah.
but I'd want a chip dog. If you could have a chip that would facilitate, if you're I want a dog that's going to live for 30 years, that it's been genetically tweaked, so you can have your dog for twice as long, 3 times as long as a regular dog. But I also want a chip in that dog's head that gives the dog an expanded understanding, because you know we have dogs, and dogs, there's so much that they don't understand. Like, do dogs understand that we control the light switches? Probably. But then do they understand we don't control the weather? Who frickin' knows? I don't know. It's our world. Dogs live in it and have no idea. They just, know enough to get along with us and get their needs met. But it might be fun to have, dogs are great, but they're also a little boring, for the same reason that guinea pigs are boring. Guinea pigs don't do that much stuff. No. Dogs do more stuff than guinea pigs, but still they're limited.
Geckos do even less, and gerbils even less than that. But I've had geckos in my life, and I've had dogs and cats. But sometimes they would get excited watching the TV because they would see the gecko commercial, and even though it was just like to them, they were maybe hearing people talking about geckos, even though it's different, a gecko and a Geico, since it's actually the Geico commercial and everything like that. But they were affiliated with that because a lot of times animals are affiliated with certain traits, like Lassie being calm and gentle and everything, for those that remember the old Lassie TV series and everything like that. So definitely these animals have fascinating lives and everything like that. But the other thing we have to be concerned about, and I know Kim's been hearing about this, is a lot of times the people that are taking care of the animals also get older themselves. So right now there's a cat preservation society that is facing the possibility that they may have to close down, and that many of these cats may be let go of or even put to death, because that's really what going to sleep is and everything like that, because they won't have a significant home. But the woman who is of Indian descent, when she founded the Goat House, was probably in her 40s or 50s, but now she's in her 80s and having some of her own health issues and along those lines.
People become animal hoarders, and then it's bad because it gets away from them. And, somebody may start off with 3 cats and it goes to 10, and then it goes to 80. And at that point, the cats are living in filth, and there are a couple dead ones in the corner, and they can't afford to feed them, and they're all starving. Plus, cats carry toxoplasmosis, which is a parasite that's associated with schizophrenia. So if you live around cats long enough, you'll probably, that's why you don't let cats around pregnant women, because of toxoplasmosis. But there's a chance that if you weren't crazy before you started collecting cats, that you will become crazy, and then it becomes a tragic situation where the house is like 2 inches deep in poop, and then somebody calls the animal, or calls somebody, because there's a giant stink spreading over the neighborhood from your horrible house.
Yeah, that's very true. And everything.
I want to talk about reptiles. Reptiles, sadly, are more boring than mammals because their brains are simpler. But sometimes you get a fun-loving reptile. There's somebody wrote up, but it's not that much fun. an instance of like an iguana that liked to play with a shovel. There was a shovel in the cage with the iguana, and the iguana would press on the shovel, and the handle would lift up, and then it would go clang. And then the iguana loved that. The iguana would keep pressing the shovel to make the clang noise, which, I mean, that's about as much fun as you're going to get from an iguana. But
I don't know. Iguanas can be fun. I remember going to a cruise. It's the only cruise that I went to and everything. And I've even seen one locally, actually on my porch here and everything. So sometimes they can just appear mysteriously out of nowhere. Because I know when I went to the Caribbean on that cruise, there was one as we were having dinner at an outside restaurant and all along those lines. And they were just sitting there chilling. Maybe it wanted a piece of the, I think we were having a burger or some sort of meal and everything. Maybe wanted a piece of that and all along those lines. And of course, like I said, the one here popped up when I was coming back home, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I'm going like, what is that? And realized it was a iguana or a lizard that had kind of blended into the backdrop furniture and was probably upset because he was having the run of the porch because my neighbors weren't around and I was just getting there. So he was probably having his own free time in my porch area, and then I interrupted the play and everything like that. So
I don't know, like a freaking, sometimes you'll get a golden retriever with a sense of humor that will like to sneak up on you and scare you and you know, maybe stick its nose in your butt and you jump, and the golden retriever is delighted. Cats like to scare you. They'll drop out on you, and they think it's fun when you go, ah. I don't know of an iguana that will drop onto your head and be thrilled when you go blah.
Well, no, iguanas may not do that, but I've been following Merlin, which is a bird app and everything like that. And we all know, and I know women hate it, but men hate it as well. I am convinced that sometimes the birds are doing their due intentionally on a time that they can target you and all along those lines. So the bird may be flying down and the bird be like, oh, there's a human. And then time to use the restroom. Let's see if we can dive and hit that.
That could
bird.
be. Like ravens are really smart. Crows are really smart. They've been known to mess with people. Parrots, you know, can have there have been some parrots that have 300 word vocabularies and have learned how to string words together into sentences. Parrots are kind of dicks, though. Like the Alex, the most famous parrot for being able to say sentences, he was like a diva. He'd be like, he'd boss people around, and he was a prick. But that's okay. And it's be great to have a parrot who's kind of an asshole, as long that you can talk with.
Hey, I got a question for you, Rick. But before I get to that, Kim, you mentioned horses. You mentioned horses earlier, and all along those lines. And horses have been very much involved in therapy. I know that right here there's Bright Star, which is a horse farm that deals with autism and all along those lines. But I know they've been used in a tremendous amount of therapies. And I know that you've done some work with therapy and all along those lines. So what is your thoughts around horses as therapy animals?
They're wonderful. If you have a calm horse, I mean, it's just like anything else, right? I mean, at the farm where we were at, we had some horses that were used to work with people with disabilities and things like that. But you had good horses that were trained. But just like any animal, if they get spooked, it can be very dangerous.
Right.
So you always want the trainer with you. You do not ever approach it by yourself. You know, because of something, because, you know, you're talking about a 1,200 pound creature that can beat the crap out of you if they get scared. And it's just like a dog. You know, dogs can be great companions, probably more reliable, but when they're trained, but you scare them, a little glitch goes wrong, they can become the most dangerous, you know, animal in the world.
Horses aren't super smart, so you want to offer them clarity. You want to, when you approach them, you want to make them understand, you know, that don't freak them out. And also you want clarity about the horses. You want to understand what they're thinking is as best you can.
Yep. I mean, we've been talking about that ice shooting. And about how a good cop will never step in front of a vehicle because that puts himself in harm's way. Same deal with horses. You never want to come up behind a freaking horse. Right.
No,
Well,
horse will
so
kick. A horse will,
cops are police officers, which there is a difference. One is more of a peace officer,
right.
but and there is a difference. I went and did a lot of research on this past week. But something I was trained and taught many years ago, I've had quite an interesting experience life in this area. But when an officer, legal authority who's been properly trained, approaches a car anyway, doesn't matter what the reason is, they touch it usually in three places.
Mhm.
They touch it they approach it by the side because, a car can't ram you either way. Real police officers are not gang related stupid people, right? Like they've had proper training on how to approach things to de-escalate, not escalate. They've also been trained that when things are escalated and you can't de-escalate them, what to do next. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like when I took self-defense training, and when someone attacked me, I didn't scream and flare all over. I knew 1, 2, 3 what to do, right? My brain immediately went, okay, I was grabbed like this. This is happening. This is what I'm up against. 1, 2, 3. You don't think you have time to do that, but if you're trained, you react a whole lot better. So in the situation with Renee Good, these people are not real police officers. Okay. They are not real people, but a real police officer will approach a car and they will touch it in three places usually before they get to the window and talk to the person. I didn't see any of those officers do anything but beat on her window.
Some of these people have been, some of the ICE agents have been set out on the street with as little as 4 weeks of training.
Right.
No, they've been trained one way. Shoot. That's all they've been taught. Kill.
Freaking Christy Nome has no law enforcement experience, and she's running a law enforcement agency.
And again, when they attack a car, you're in fear. I mean, and a lot of these agents probably don't understand castle doctrine, but your car is your castle. You are protected in there if you shoot and defend yourself. Now, if you do that with all of these men with 9-barrel guns that I've seen, they're going to shoot back. So that's not exactly smart to shoot gangs that are attacking your car. But to get away, if I saw masked men coming to my car and they start beating on my car. And the other problem I have is it's unusual that what we've been witnessing, but what they think that their cars are bumper cars. Like everyone, I see so many testimonies of them ramming people's cars, and then they testify, "Oh no, she rammed me." Well, that's odd, but her side of her car's rammed. How did she ram you? Oh yeah, okay. So she turned in circles until she rammed you. So I'm and one of the things that I did a little bit of history study. We have had more innocent Americans detained and killed in the first year that Trump has been president than the citizens in Germany were killed and detained under Hitler's order under his first year. More. That's ridiculous.
That's horrible. We have 5 times the population of Germany.
Right, but it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't fear going out into the street and just watch. Some of these people are trying to get to work and they can't help that they drove through a area being victimized by Trump's ICE regime. And you're right, Christy Nome is not trained in law enforcement. I don't know what she's trained in.
Culture in that case, the culture comes from the top down. And
right.
I bounced bars for 25 years, and some of the bars I worked in had enormous security staff because I worked in one place that would get 2,000 people showing up every Sunday. I worked another place that would get up to 10,000 people show up after a college football game with 25. And in places like that, you'll have clusters of like bouncers who like to beat people up, who might like to sexually coerce hot girls, and they make this little knot of badness. Or how the entire staff might depend on who's running the bouncers. And Christy Nome is running a low accountability, high cruelty agency, and it's rewarding a lot of terrible behavior.
Rewarding bad behavior.
We've
Just
also
really quick.
been noticing that there have been a lot of people who are working for ICE that were pardoned during J6, and then you've got a lot of, which we already knew, but I bet, and I'm willing to bet, because you haven't seen ICE take out any cartel people, and I feel like that we're going to discover that there's a lot of cartel people working for ICE, because I hear a lot of very strong, fluent, horrible, rude Spanish being spoken. I have to go to another show, but and I just noticed Jatovi's popped in. Hi, Jatovi.
Ooh, I want to. There's a thing I want
to stay safe, right? Just right now, stay safe. And
so I want to talk with. I got a whole thing to talk with Jatovi about on MLK Day.
Yeah,
right.
And before you get to that, I just had one quick question for you. Then definitely want you to go to the MLK conversation. But Rick, how many of your security officers were ex-police officers? Because I know here in Durham and a number of other places.
A couple of there were some, where not ex, but one of the bars I worked in was in Boulder, which is a low crime town. And the cops used to like to come and hang out, and they were great guys because they were not like all. This was 9/11 turned a lot of police departments into paramilitary police, the kind of SWAT style policing. This was before that, and it was the cops were casual in a casual town. Now, when real crime happened, like JonBenet Ramsey, they screwed up the investigation because they weren't experienced in that kind of stuff. But on a personal level, these cops were a delight to be around because they were chill.
No, I understand that. I just know that as Jatovi knows, I'm going to turn the conversation over to you and Jatovi for MLK. But here in the Durham area, a number of police, that is their second job, and the sheriff department. So they will work security for the nightclubs, whether it's a Latin nightclub or an African-American nightclub or just a rock club or whatever. But they will work security. That's kind of their second job and everything like that. And they get paid pretty decent.
Let me talk about cops in nightclubs. The deal is you can't, a horny guy, and clubs bars used to be about the only place to go and try to hook up before the internet. But a horny guy standing there alone in a nightclub it's creepy. Everybody knows he's there to try to hook up, unless they're being paid to be there. And so if a cop is being paid to hang out as security, that cop is vouched for by the situation. And that cop might meet a lot of nice women. It's a good way to get paid to talk to women. It's.
Yep. Well, I'll let you.
So I've been thinking about what MLK would think of now compared to 57 years ago, the last time he was with us, and I think he would be at least temporarily surprised by all the nonsense and outrageousness. So the civil rights movement, to get respect, civil rights protesters were told to look as respectable as possible. The men, black suits, white shirts, black tie. The women, their nicest dresses. And the 60s was a serious time. Civil rights was everybody was trying to be as serious as possible to get respect. And then I look at Star Trek, and Star Trek had the original series was serious. It was created by Gene Roddenberry was a cop and a fighter pilot who managed to sell a science fiction series. And there was any humor. Everybody on Star Trek, all the characters were stiffs. Kirk was a stiff. Spock was the stiffest of stiffs. And they'd occasionally do little jokes, but the jokes weren't good. Everything was freaking serious. And now, one of the guys who dared to be not serious all the time was Muhammad Ali. And he dared to be outrageous. And now the whole culture has shifted to the idea of kind of belligerent nonsense and outrageousness to celebrate freedom, which is, I think, a good change. Because, like, I hate the original Star Trek because I think it's freaking lame, and I like the embracing of goofiness, that people should be free to goof around.
I mean, it's an interesting tie-in to go from MLK all the way to Star Trek.
But they're part of the same era. Star Trek, I think, starts in '65, which is right in the that's in the thick of that seriousness.
Did you ever see the famous interview with because you mentioned Muhammad Ali, and I think it was either Daniel Mohan or one of the other conservative talk show hosts, where he was basically calling him out because, of course, definitely he was a person that had avoided the draft and all along those lines. But it was interesting, that interview. I've actually pulled it up maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, people were pissed because he didn't want to fight in Vietnam, but also because he, Whitey didn't maybe like that he was boisterous and creative and said, like, made up fun things to say.
So, just as a fun note, since we're on the fun side of things, yes, and honestly, a realistic note. Here, you asked what MLK might think of things are today. Well, here's part of the Boondocks. I don't know if you saw the episode, but the Boondocks actually did that. And the Boondocks was a great social commentary, not only on society, but the different cultures. Well, the African American culture, as well as the things that were dealt with. This was just speaking directly about MLK and the African American culture, because I mean the whole episode talked about what if MLK came back, basically. But this is pretty funny. But this is the end of the episode, because what's going on right now? They had an MLK celebration. That MLK was alive. And they had an MLK party, and he really couldn't even get in to his own party that was celebrating him. And it really wasn't a celebration. It's supposed to be this crazy celebration because, just as he talked about, the ideas and the ideals that MLK tried to have at that time, it wasn't about parties and stuff like this. But this is pretty fun. Because it's true. If he came back, a lot of people would listen.
Excuse me, brothers and sisters, please. If someone just turned off.
King looked out on his people and saw they were in great need. So he did what all great leaders do. He told them the truth.
Will you ignorant niggas please shut the hell up?
He just said what I think he said.
Is this it? This is what I got all those ass whoopings for? I had a dream once. It was a dream that little black boys and little black girls would drink from the river of prosperity, freed from the thirst of oppression. But lo and behold, some 4 decades later, what have I found but a bunch of trifling, shiftless, good-for-nothing niggas? And I know some of you don't want to hear me say that word. It's the ugliest word in the English language, but that's what I see now, niggas. And you don't want to be a nigga, because niggas are living contradictions. Niggas are full of unfulfilled ambitions. Niggas wax and wane. Niggas love to complain. Niggas love to hear themselves talk but hate to explain. Niggas love being another man's judge and jury. Niggas procrastinate until it's time to worry. Niggas love to be late. Niggas hate to hurry. Black entertainment television. is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Usher, Michael Jackson is not a genre of music. And now I'd like to talk about soul playing. I've seen what's around the corner. I've seen what's over the horizon. And I promise you, you niggas have nothing to celebrate. And no, I won't get there with you. I'm going to Canada.
So
that was a
would
classic.
be-
Yeah, that was a classic. Hey,
that would
Toby,
be what's going on.
speaking of that, and speaking of comedy, after the game yesterday, it was the LA Rams Chicago Bears game. I actually watched part of it, and then I had to get to another podcast. It was actually Rick's podcast and everything, but I did watch the Tracy Morgan special, The Life and Times of Reggie Dinkins. I was just wondering your thoughts around that show and everything, because it was kind of a play on football and football stardom or lack of stardom, because he was playing this washed up football player that was very bad and everything. So I was watching if you saw that special, because Tracy Morgan was a Saturday Night Live guy and everything, and what you thought of it.
I want
Which
to.
movie? Oh, which movie was it?
It's the new Tracy Morgan show. Is it?
I haven't watched it.
One off, or is it? It's a show, right? There's episodes.
I think they're episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't watched the new Tracy Morgan thing yet. I mean, there's a lot of shows that I'm still catching up on, and there's some good shows out there like Fallout that I'm on season 2. Got to continue that. I just started the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the new spinoff or the prequel of Game of Thrones, which actually started pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't the same Game of Thrones rundown, but it did a good job. And then some of the anime stuff.
And that's the way I was with The Life and Times of Reggie Dinkins. I was actually pleasantly surprised, even though it played on all the stereotypes, the divorced wife that is the athlete's wife. Of course, he's a very bad athlete, but he's managed to get on some covers and all along those lines. And it played on the agent stereotype, and it played on the stereotypes around the young girlfriend who's not kind of the bimbo type and everything like that. And it played on the son that's a aspiring fellow athlete. So it played on a lot of the stereotypes, but I thought he did a decent job of playing on those stereotypes.
He's great. He's so good at playing a fuck up that you're convinced that he actually is, but he's not. He's funny as hell on 30 Rock. That's a great freaking show. I hope this show has some of the 30 Rock people adding jokes in, because was it like a joke a minute? It
was like a joke a minute.
That's great. I mean, that's a great format for him. Yeah, I mean,
I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it too much.
No problem.
but he's kind of like, who's Eastbound and Down? Danny McBride.
Yeah, Eastbound and Down was funny.
Yeah, so I mean, they kind of play the same range of characters who are like, incorrigible, chaos agents.
Yep. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap everything up unless y'all got some final thoughts and everything. I know that I've got we got the timeshare show getting ready to come up very shortly, and I've actually got a Zoom call because we may be bringing the symphony to Pod TV, because I know I've got to meet with the symphony, the Durham Symphony coordinator, and a friend of his who I think it might be in the state of Washington, if I remember correctly, and everything. But they are wanting to do a show around learning around symphony music, both the history as well as little known symphony artists, both here as well as in other parts of the country and historically and all along those lines. So this is a new show that may be coming to Pod TV. I've got to have a Zoom call with them later on.
I just want to go back to Star Trek and MLK for a second, because Star Trek, Roddenberry, the creator, wanted to create a future world in which all races get along, which is why you had a mix of races on the bridge of the Enterprise. But he still couldn't get away from the
it got him in trouble a couple of times, because there was the whole thing around Miss Nichols and the star of Star Trek and some of
Yeah.
their kissing
Kirk,
scenes.
Captain William Shatner, and that was the first interracial kiss on TV.
Right.
But still, it was super sexist because the Uhura was basically a space secretary. She didn't get to run the ship, and she was there in a teeny little skirt where she couldn't bend over in space.
Nope, could not do that. Might reveal a little bit too much, and now everything is out in the open and all along those lines, both literally and figuratively, and everything like that. So we're going to get on out here. We've got a guest, I think, talking politics with us on World Edition tomorrow. So I'll send y'all a little bit more about them when I send out the invitation, which I haven't sent out yet. But I know that he has agreed to come on and to talk some of the political landscape with us and all along those lines. But right now, let's get on out of here. And they've got timeshares coming up.
All right. Bye-bye.